All right. Well, hey, I am so honored to be with you in this great church today. I don't know how often you're in other churches, but as somebody who goes to churches around the country, not infrequently in my current role, it takes me about 5 seconds in a church lobby to figure out, is this a church I'd want to be a part of? Because when you get in a healthy, vibrant church, there's just something in the atmosphere where people want to be there. There's a buzz in the lobby. There's an electricity of connection, and this church has it. And so I want to let you know, if you're somebody who's on the fringes or maybe even a first-time guest today, and you're looking for a place where you can get connected and be known and have fun, this is your church. Welcome home. I would want to let you know up front, before we even kind of dive in, I know I'm kind of on an 0-2 count here with things working against me. One thing going against me, especially today, and I'll just let you know if you haven't seen my little middle schooler run around the building somewhere, is I am a Baltimore Ravens fan. I know, it's okay. I still love you. Please love me. I think we can bond over our mutual hatred of the Pittsburgh Steelers is what I'm hoping. And this is my family. What? This is us beating the Bengals last year and Joe Burrow's ugly hair, and we were so excited about it. We actually, last year, we went to this game in Cincinnati, and we fumbled the ball in overtime, and they were like in field goal range already. I was like, kids, we're out of here. And we start walking towards the exit, and my son, middle schooler, who's with me, goes, Dad, can we just stay and please watch them kick the winning field goal? And I was like, whatever. So we stay there. They missed the field goal. I was like, we're going back to our seats. Let's go. And we ended up winning. But this is my beautiful wife, Lindsay. This is our daughter. We just shipped off to Phoenix for college at Grand Canyon University. So if you notice a pit in my stomach, that's her. And then we got 3 great boys, 16, 14, and 12. We did live in Baltimore 15 years, planted a church there. It did really well, but we felt 3 years ago like we were supposed to go back to the church I grew up at in Kentucky. And I know that's strike 2 for some of you all, because I have literally been asked when I've preached outside of Kentucky, did you have to buy shoes to come here? Like, how does that work, living in this place that we've heard of but don't venture to? And it is, here's what I'll say, is I found a video on Instagram that really defends those of us from Kentucky, so I'll let the video do the from. I just want to compliment 2 people before I move on. One is, who was here actually in town and was at last service, is a coworker of mine who grew up at this church. Isaac Leimeister, you may know his family, is the middle school minister where I work. He pastors my kids, and just for context, that's the only reason I say this. We have a staff in our weirdly big church of 500 people on staff, and Isaac is without question one of the top leaders on our entire staff. And he is diligent and he loves Jesus, but the best thing he does is he just knows how to love people well. And so I want to say thank you, because he got that here. We didn't teach him that, we just hired him because he had it. But he got it from you all. And I know those years of serving in kids ministry and doing youth events and being patient with rebellious kids. I know that's a lot, and I'll get emotional talking about it. My family literally gets to benefit for how you pour into young people in this church. And so I just want to say thank you for that. I'll even add on, if you're a young person and you think, hey, what am I getting out of this church? It maybe for a couple of you, is that God's saying, hey, I'm going to teach you the most important life lessons in this church so you can go somewhere else and impact other people the way you've been impacted one day. I also would be remiss if I did not honor your lead pastor. We just met for the first time last night, but I said, how long have you been here? And he said, 19 years. I was like, okay, I have questions. How do you stay, because I wasn't able to do it, how do you stay in one place 19 years? And as he talked, it really came down to 2 things. He said, you got to have people who love you really well, and you got to do your best to love them really well. And that's what he is. That's who he is. And just so you know, pastors don't stay at one place 19 years anymore. It just doesn't really happen. And so, John, I honor you, and I look up to your faithfulness and the impact you've made, because there are things, you know, that there's an impact you can have only when you're somewhere 19 years that you can't have if you just hop around in ministry like a lot of us are tempted to do sometimes. So thank you for your example to me. We're starting this series today called Bloodstained Pews. I want to tell you the story from which it was born. June 5th, 1944, the 101st Airborne is in southern England, and they take off to fly overnight and be dropped in northern France for the Allied invasion to fight Hitler and the Nazis, what we now call D-Day. The first people to do so were the 101st Airborne. They were called the tip of the spear. And among the 101st Airborne were two medics named Kenneth Moore and Robert Wright. And like most of the 101st Airborne, they were misdropped. Like most of the medics who were dropped, they lost most of their supplies in the drop. They landed only with what they had on their belt, not much. They found themselves in a small town called Orrville, France. Not a strategic foothold. You won't see it in Band of Brothers. It was an out-of-the-way town of maybe a few hundred people. But they quickly spot a church building that is a 1,000-year-old church building, very small, maybe 1/5 at most the size of this room we find ourselves in today. It has a handful of pews lined up in the room. But when they walk in and see these pews, they realize this will be the perfect aid station. One of them has on his belt a Red Cross flag. They hang that on the door so both armies will know, hey, this is a medical place of safety, a neutral area. They find a wheelbarrow. Then one of them goes out with the wheelbarrow, finds a soldier who's been shot, brings him back, lays him on a pew where the other works on him. And they begin to do this for the many hours to come. In fact, they were at this church a total of 36 hours doing this exact thing with no sleep. The night is anything but uneventful. At one point, a German soldier bursts in with his machine gun pointed at him, but when he sees what they're doing, he crosses himself and leaves. Another time, a bomb crashes through the ceiling, lands in the middle of the church they're in. Everyone freezes, but it's a dud. It doesn't explode. Just to be safe, they pick it up and throw it out. The stained glass windows all get shot out and destroyed. When the area in one point in the fighting is under German control, two German officers walk in. When they see that the American medics are treating people from both armies without respect to uniform, they say through translation, we'll send a doctor as soon as we can find one. Over the course of the night, they treat some 80 soldiers before the fighting and the war moves on to more strategic footholds. They both receive the Silver Star for their work on D-Day. But what strikes me most is not what happened on D-Day, but what happened after the war. Because as Europe was literally rebuilding their towns and villages in which they live, they go to the church and they replace the stained glass windows and they fix the hole in the roof from the dud bomb. But when they come to the pews, they do something unique. Because in the course of the night, you had soldiers who'd been injured. They were bleeding on these pews. There were blood on the pews. And if I was in charge, I would say, get them out and get new pews or sand them down and revarnish them or something. Nobody wants to sit on that. But the people of Orrville did something unique. They said this church was constructed 1,000 years ago to be a place of hope for the hurting and the broken, and on D-Day, that's what it was. So preserve the bloodstained pews. We will leave the bloodstained pews so generations to come can know not just what happened here on D-Day and the sacrifice of many, but also what the church is always supposed to be, a place of hope and healing for the hurting and broken. And when I first saw that story on TV several years ago, I thought, this is the best picture of church I've ever seen. This is what the church is supposed to be. Not just a church, but every church is supposed to be a church of bloodstained pews where the hurting and the broken can come and receive healing and then join the mission to fight the forces of evil. And that's not Carl's idea of church. That's Jesus' idea of church. It's why he says, come to me when you're weary and burdened, I'll give you rest. It's why he says, if your faith is a bent reed, I won't break it. If your faith is like a candle that is just barely there, I won't snuff it out. It's why he says, hey, children, come here. When he says those things, he's saying, if you're tired, if your faith is a smoldering candle, if your faith is like a child and you don't know what you're doing, come here, I gotcha, come on in. And then he adds the statement at another point, the church, the gates of hell will not overcome it. And when I thought of that, I used to think that meant the church is under attack and hell won't overcome the church, will squeak out a victory in the last second. But then somebody reminded me what I learned in high school history class. Remember how ancient cities were constructed? They had walls. Right? The primary defense mechanism in an ancient city was they had a wall around it. And they had gates that were open during the day so you could go in and out to your farm or whatever. And the most vulnerable part of a city was the gates. If you were attacking a city, you would attack the gates. So when Jesus says, I'll build my church and the gates of hell won't overcome it, he's not saying hell is attacking the church. He's saying the church is attacking hell. We're attacking its gates. We're saving some people from death, and hell, no matter what it tries, will never overcome the church. And so when you combine those two aspects of weary and burden and attacking the gates of hell, you realize that's what the church is supposed to be, that we're a hospital for the broken, that we're a place of bloodstained pews for those who are hurting, and then once they are healed, we will join the mission of reaching out to the lost in this world and saving them from hell. So we are going to look at a passage of scripture today that I believe encapsulates this. It's in Mark chapter 2, and whether you are someone who has just woke up on fire for Jesus and his church and couldn't be more excited about it, or you're somebody who goes through the motions and you're here and yeah, Jesus, but it's just a thing. Or if you're even someone who was brought here, maybe against your will, somebody bribed you and said, hey, listen, I know you don't follow Jesus and whatever, but you just got to come and see. We're going to see today in Mark chapter 2 who Jesus came for, what the church is supposed to be, and our place in that. Look at Mark chapter 2, verse 13. Then Jesus went out to the lake shore again and taught the crowds that were coming to him. As he walked along, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus. Now he's called Levi here in the Gospels. Their culture was multiple languages. And in one language, his name is Levi. Another language, you've heard maybe of Matthew. It's the same guy, Levi and Matthew. He was sitting at his tax collector's booth. Now let me explain why this is a bad thing, why everyone was annoyed with him because of this. Tax collection in the Roman Empire was different than in the US government, where there's just known tax rates, and if you fall here, this is what you pay. In the Roman Empire, it was so vast, tax collection was done auction style. So they would say, okay, who wants to be the tax collector for this region of the empire? And they would bid it. And somebody would say, well, I can collect this much to send to Rome. And somebody would say, I can collect this much to send to Rome. And whoever was the highest won the territory. The catch was, whatever they collected on top of that is what they got to make and live on. So the more devious you are, the better tax collector you are, and the more rich you would become. So you can see why in the Gospels people look down on tax collectors, because they exist to swindle people out of their money, and they're sellouts to the Roman Empire who prevent the Jews from having their own country. Follow me and be my disciple, Jesus said to him. So Levi got up and followed him. Verse 15. Later, Levi invited Jesus and his disciples to his home as dinner guests, along with many tax collectors and other disreputable sinners. They had a party. There are many people of this kind among Jesus' followers. Notice when you read the scriptures that Jesus always draws people into community. This is what he does. Genesis 2:18, it's not good for man to be alone. Ecclesiastes 4:10, pity the person who falls down and has no one to help him up. Galatians 6:2, bear one another's burdens. We are created to be together. Maybe you heard the singles ad that was online with the Atlanta Tribune several years ago. Single black female seeks male companionship, ethnicity not important. I'm a very good-looking girl who loves to play. I love long walks in the woods, long car rides, camping, cozy winter nights lying by the fire. I'll be at the front door when you get home, wearing only what nature gave me. Kiss me and I'm yours. Call this number and ask for Daisy. 15,000 men responded to this ad only to reach the Atlanta Humane Society where 9-week-old black lab named Daisy lived. Some of y'all got dirty minds, that's all I'm saying. Verse 16, but when the teachers of religious law, who were Pharisees, the religious leaders, saw him eating with tax collectors and other sinners. They asked his disciples, why does he eat with such scum? The word Pharisee, these religious leaders, that word actually means to separate. They believed that the best way to honor God and his law was to separate from anyone who didn't want to do that. My 16-year-old I showed in that picture, he does some sports, but several years ago, I think when he was maybe 13, he thought, why would I play sports when I can get paid while other kids play sports? So he went to umpire school. And he studied like baseball rule book, and he would quiz me on it. There's more rules than I can ever make sense of in baseball, but he took it so serious. And he got in this league where the parents and kids take it really serious, and he was umpiring, I think it was 11 and 12-year-olds at the time. He comes home one night, I'm in bed, my wife had gone to pick him up. He marches into my bedroom, and he's just all worked up. He goes, Dad, did Mom tell you? And I was like, no, I haven't seen her. What's up, buddy? And in complete excitement, he goes, I just threw out my first kid tonight. I'm like, oh, brother, what happened? And he explains this play where a kid was trying to advance from third all the way home. He was out by a mile. My son called him out. Everybody knew he was out. He had made a mistake in trying it. But on his way back to the dugout, he takes off his helmet, he slams it on the ground, and he yells loud enough for everybody to hear the F word. And without missing a beat, my son looks at him and says, you're out of here. Don't be bringing that language on my field, which I thought was absolutely hysterical. And then the next thing that occurred to me is I said, buddy, I like that. Next time you back talk to Mom, I'm going to say to you, you're out of here. Don't be bringing that mouth up in my kitchen, which I thought was hilarious, but my teenager didn't think at all. But the Pharisees are saying, Jesus, you need to tell these people you're out of here. And we all have those people. And maybe for you, it's rich people. Or poor people, maybe a certain race, maybe it's lazy people, maybe it's people who care about their appearance too much, maybe it's old people who are slow, maybe it's young people who are self-absorbed, maybe it's that political party that's so ignorant. And we probably wouldn't say it out loud, but for all of us, we're tempted to think of those people, where we would act like the Pharisees and say, Jesus, I mean, come on, them? We for real? Verse 17, when Jesus heard this, he told them, healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. And Jesus is Captain Obvious here. If you work in an emergency room and you have a room full of people in the waiting area, someone walks up and you ask, why are you here? And they say, to get my yearly physical. You're going to say, no, we're here for the people with the broken arm. Like, get out of the way. Jesus says, I came for sick people. He goes on, I've come to call not those who think they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners. He's saying, Pharisees, you think you got it together. These people know they don't. See, the reality is we all have a reason someone should say to us, you're out of here. And I think there are a lot of us that feel that what I did last night, the struggle, the fight I had this week, how lazy I am, how manipulative I am, I'm not who I want to be that I am, that if people knew that, they'd say, you're out of here. And Jesus says, no, that's who I came for. So first lesson today, write this down on your program. Jesus came for the broken. Jesus came for the broken. Verse 15 mentions tax collectors and other disreputable sinners, many people of this kind among Jesus' followers. Jesus came for the broken. Whenever I hear broken or the word broke, I just can't help but that old viral clip that I looked up again on YouTube recently. This one, you remember this?
Jaden has $1 bill, 1 quarter, and 2 pennies. How much money does he have? Jaden broke.
That kid's smarter than he realizes right there. Jesus came for the broken. I read an article several years ago that was tongue-in-cheek titled The Atrocious Mathematics of the Gospel. And it talked about how grace doesn't make mathematical sense. He talked about how Jesus, when he wants to describe our Father in heaven, says, our Father in heaven's kind of like a shepherd who has 100 sheep, and one of them wanders off and counts, and he's got 99. So he leaves the 99 where wolves could get him, or they could wander off, or they could get injured just to find that one. Does that make sense? He talks about in the Gospel of John when a woman takes a jar of perfume that's worth a year's salary. Think of something you'd work a whole year your salary for, and she pours it out on Jesus' feet. It's gone. Spent a whole year's salary in 5 minutes. And Jesus said, what she did is beautiful. Jesus says, if you want to understand grace, it's kind of like somebody who went out and needed day laborers. And so he hired some at 6 a.m. to work the whole day out in the fields. Then he hired some more at 5:50 p.m. They ended at 6, just worked 10 minutes. He paid them all a whole day's wage because he wanted them to eat that day. Wasn't fair. Because he wanted to take care of them, because that's grace. One author put it this way: grace doesn't make demands, it just gives. Grace is unconditional acceptance given to an undeserving person by an unobligated giver. It is one-way love. Jesus came to liberate us from the weight of having to make it on our own, from the demand to measure up. He came to emancipate us from the burden to get it all right, from the obligation to fix ourselves, find ourselves, and free ourselves. Jesus came to release us from the slavish need to be right, rewarded, regarded, and respected. Because Jesus came to set the captives free, your life does not have to be a tireless effort to establish yourself, justify yourself, and validate yourself. Grace is recklessly generous, uncomfortably promiscuous. It doesn't use sticks, carrots, or time cards. It doesn't keep score. Grace is love that seeks you out when you have nothing to give in return. Grace is love coming at you that has nothing to do with you. Grace is being loved when you are unlovable. It's why Tim Keller said, you are more wicked than you dared imagine, but more loved than you dare dream. It's why Philip Yancey says there is nothing you can do to make God love you more, and there is nothing you can do to make God love you less. Why? Because Jesus came for the broken. But here's the second lesson today. Write this down on your notes. We're all broken. We're all broken. Jesus said, healthy people don't need a doctor. Sick people do. I haven't come to call those who think they're righteous, but those who know they are sinners. This is a point Jesus often makes. It's not about how righteous you can be. It's recognizing how sinful you are. Also notice his lesson to the Pharisees, the legalist, judgmental people, isn't, you guys get out. You're out of here. He says, recognize how sinful you are. Everybody's welcome. Because anyone who comes to him gets grace. A friend of mine started a church out on the West Coast, and their slogan for their church is hope for everyone. And I love that. I think you can really say that's a slogan for every church. It's hope for everyone. The message is not just for some random people out there. The message is for us. We're all broken. Now, there's a lie within this that we're tempted to believe. I used to think the biggest lie Satan tried to convince us of is you're okay. I used to think we thought, I don't need any help, I'm good. But the more I have done this over the years, I just think we know. Like, you know you're not okay. You know you need help being a man, being a dad, being a student, being a mom, struggling with work, like just life. We need help. Here's what I think the biggest lie Satan tries to tell us is, I'm the only one. I'm the only one who thinks like that. I'm the only one who's addicted to that. I'm the only one who's involved with church but is tempted by this. I'm the only one who doesn't have what it takes. I'm the only one who thinks meds are my only option. I'm the only one who drinks to forget. I'm the only one who criticizes every flaw in every person I meet. I'm the only one, fill in the blank. And when you think you're the only one, you hide, you run, you wear a mask. I read a biography of Napoleon, that French emperor, several years ago, and the story that stuck with me the most was when the French army, under his leadership, invaded the Russian capital. The Russian army and government did something no army had ever done up to that point in history. They evacuated their capital. French didn't win a battle, but they're in control of the capital. It's kind of weird. Napoleon takes up residence in the palace overlooking the huge lawn where his army is camped. At nighttime, his servant comes in the room and begins to snuff out the candles. And Napoleon says, no, don't snuff out the candles. He says, I'm sorry, sir, I thought you were going to bed. He goes, oh, I am going to bed, but leave the candles burning and make sure they burn all night because my army is camped below. And at some point, one of them is going to get out of their tent and look up at this window where they know their emperor is sleeping. And I want them to see a candle up so that they think their emperor is hard at work, and that will help us win the battle tomorrow. The caricature of Napoleon had been more important than the actual Napoleon. And I would argue that was one of the reasons that he ultimately experienced downfall. He didn't want people to know. But we're all broken. Somebody said to me, Carl, I don't like that you say we're broken. Doesn't Jesus make us whole? Well, yes and no. Jesus died on the cross for our sin. He rose from the grave to prove he's God and to foreshadow what will happen for everyone who believes in him. So am I forgiven? Am I pure? Am I absolutely perfect in the Father's sight? Yes, because of Jesus. At the same time, the evil I do, the evil I don't want to do, I keep on doing. At the same time, the good I want to do, I don't do. So until I am raised from the dead with a glorified body, I'm still broken. But Psalm 51 actually says that's good news. It says, the sacrifice you desire, God, is a broken spirit. You won't reject a broken and repentant heart. So I just challenge you, admit you're broken. Admit you're not enough. Because Jesus did not come for those who think they don't need him. He came for those who say, Jesus, help, and know they need it. So I think in this journey, there's something that you're going to have to bring to light. And it could be a sin. It could be something that happened to you. It could be a future dream. I don't know. But it's something that scares you. Teresa of Avila once said that the heart is a many-chambered castle. Each chamber is locked and full of darkness, and the Christian life is letting Jesus one at a time unlock those doors and flood them with light. And that's the challenge you face in this series, is will you bring that thing, and you know the thing, will you bring it to the light? And I know it scares you. I would actually tell you that it's good news that it scares you because it's an opportunity for faith. Hebrews says faith is what pleases God. Here's what it does not say. It does not say to have had faith is what pleases God. Which is a little depressing because a whole lot of us could go around and talk about great stories where we've had faith. I chose to get baptized as the first person in my family. I went on this mission trip. It scared me to death. When I first decided to be generous with church, oh man, that took faith. You had the stories. But what pleases God is not to have had faith. It is a present day, sweaty palm-inducing, risk-taking kind of faith. So let me tell you one more story to encourage you. A couple months ago, my family got to do something that I had been dreaming of for years. And all 6 of us went to Yosemite National Park and hiked the Half Dome. Half Dome is this dome of a mountain that's been chopped in half by a glacier, geologists tell us some amount of years ago. And it's an 8-mile hike, 5,000 feet gain in elevation. So at 3:50 a.m., my family wakes up. We load as much water as we can possibly carry, and we start hiking. And we see some beautiful waterfalls. We see just some of the best parts of God's creation. But then we got to the part right before the last 400 yards, which is the dome itself. And it's really steep. In fact, instantly it made sense to my family, the stories I told them of how people die hiking this every year if they're not careful, or they try to do it in bad weather or aren't paying attention. And I look down at my son, who's 12, and I see 2 big tears coming down his face. Because he knows his dad's had a dream of his family hiking up this, and it's so steep they even have steel cables to climb it. He's like, I don't know. I don't think so. And so I bend down next to him. I say, hey, bud, are you scared? And he nods. I said, now listen, You know from past hikes we've done that if I believe we're in actual danger, I'll turn us around. We won't finish the hike. You know that, right? He nods. I said, so here's what we're gonna do, is we're gonna start, and I don't want you to look up. You'll get intimidated by how far we have to go. I don't want you to look down because it's so steep it'll scare you. There's gonna be other people coming up and down. I don't want you to look to the left or right and think, what are they doing, and compare ourselves. I want you to listen to the voice of your dad, and I want you to just focus on the next step you need to take. Can we just start and try and do that? He nods. And so we start grabbing these cables. I can hear his heart beating out of his chest. But he looks at what's in front of him. He listens only to his dad's voice. We get to the top, and he gets to experience a view that's like nothing we've ever seen, the most beautiful part of God's creation, and we just stand in awe. Here's what I believe. I believe the reason God led your pastor to choose this series is because you have a chamber of darkness in your heart that's locked, and Jesus wants in. And it's gonna be scary. And so my encouragement to you is don't look at how far you have to go. That'll depress you. Don't look at the past and how far you could fall if things go wrong. Don't get distracted by the people who are literally on your right and left right now. Let them run their race. You just listen to the voice of your Father. Listen to that voice of the Holy Spirit. Focus on the very next step in front of you. And if you do, I absolutely believe God's gonna lead you to places that you never imagined. He'll use you in great ways. And one day you'll hear him say that great phrase, well done, good and faithful servant. Let's pray together. Father in heaven, we need you. We have tried to do life on our own and it doesn't work. In fact, we're actually really good at giving you the keys and then taking them back on some things, and it just doesn't work. So we just gather in worship to tell you all over again, you are our God. We love and worship you because where else would we go? And Jesus, we need the church. Even in following you, we try to do things on our own, and that doesn't work either. We don't like being alone. We don't like the effect of secrets on our life. We want to laugh with other people. We want them to support us. We want us to encourage them. And it's, Jesus, that's why we need the church. Will you continue to bless this church, this not good church, this great church with great humble leadership that is changing the world, whether it realizes it or not. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.